you've watched any of my vlogs, I've talked a lot about when you're processing your tomatoes that you need to save the skins of your tomatoes to do something, because we were going to do something with the tomato skins. So today I decided it was finally the day that I was going to show you what to do with those extra tomato skins. So if you've had them frozen, you take them out and you let them thaw, or if you have some fresh tomatoes and you have some time, what we're going to be doing with them is we're going to be dehydrating them. Why would you dehydrate your tomato skins? Well, there's different reasons. I mean, you can just throw them away if you want, but I find that's kind of wasteful when you know that there's so many wonderful things that you can do with them. So what you can do with tomato skins is you can add them to soups and sauces. So if you use tomato skins, or if you decide to dehydrate tomatoes and you slice them really thin, you can take those and you can put them back inside of a soup and it'll rehydrate them. So that's one of the things that you can do with your dehydrated tomatoes. If you use just regular tomatoes and you slice really thin, you can add some dry herbs to them before you dehydrate. That will add some extra flavor when you add them to soups and sauces as well. Something else that you can do with your dehydrated tomatoes as well, and this is mostly what I do with them, is that you can grind them up and you can use them as a tomato paste. If you're making a sauce or a soup, or even something that you want thickened, you can use your dehydrated tomatoes to thicken up that sauce. So what I do in this case is I will run them through a food processor or use a hand blender and grind them up into a powder, and then throw them inside my sauces or chilies or anything that I need thickened up with tomato. You can sprinkle them on top of your soups as a garnish. You can sprinkle them on top of salads. There's lots of different things that you can do with your dehydrated tomatoes. This is my dehydrator. There's lots of different models out there. This is the one that I chose for different reasons, I guess, but it's convenient. It has lots of stackable trays that you can buy separately, you can add on. It's easy to wash. I can just throw them in the sink. I think I could put them in the dishwasher, although I haven't done that. But I think you can do it in the dishwasher. It's really easy to set. You just stack your shelves on. It's really easy. And it comes with a nice instruction manual that has lots of good recipes, lots of good ideas. So this is the model that I chose, and I'm sure there's just lots of great models out there as well. So I have a lot of tomato skins that I have saved actually from yesterday from taking the skins off, and some that I've taken out that I've had frozen. So we're going to get started. I guess just to show you the difference, these are some tomato skins that I took off my tomatoes last night because I was making another batch of salsa today, so I didn't bother freezing them because I figured that I would be dehydrating them today. So these are some skins that I had last night, and they're fairly dry. They're not too wet. So these are some that I've had frozen for not really that long, but so there's I was going to say you couldn't see, but if you saw the water just drip out of them. So these, when you freeze them, creates a lot more liquid inside. So when you thaw them, there's a lot of liquid. So I try to squeeze the liquid out a little bit before dehydrating, just so the dehydration process goes a lot faster. So that's the first thing you can do. What you need to do before to dehydrate your tomatoes is just basically lay them out on your trays. Don't stack them one on top of the other. Just put them in a single layer on top of your trays. And you will see that if you do a lot of tomatoes during your season that you're gonna maybe be going through, because this one has 6 trays, you may be dehydrating quite a bit to get through all your tomato skins. But like I say, it's not something you have to do all at once. If you don't have time to do them all, you can freeze the tomato skins and take them out, thaw them, and dehydrate them when you have more time. So you just proceed to layer these on to your trays until you've got the entire tray covered but not overlapping, and you want them to dry out. If you layer them on too thick, they'll take a lot longer to dry. And you need these to get really dry. You don't want them to go bad, or you don't want any mold or anything to get into them. Dehydrating is really great. There's different things that you can do. You can make, I love dehydrated pineapple slices. It's one of the favorite things that I like to dehydrate. I really like those. They're nice and sweet. I've made like fruit leather before, like they're like fruit roll-ups. Here in Canada anyways, they call them fruit roll-ups. It's made with pureed fruit and there is some sugar added and things like that, but it's really nice, it's really good. You can make your beef jerky, lots of different things that you can do and dehydrate. Now that I've got all my trays full, we're going to start the dehydrator. This can take anywhere between 6 to 12 hours depending on how thick they are, depending on how damp they are when you put them in the dehydrator. So it's really hard to tell. It's something that you got to kind of keep an eye on, check on throughout the day regularly. I got a little bit of a head start today, so just to kind of be able to show you different stages of dehydration. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what these look like. These trays have been dehydrating. It's been about 4 hours, and as you can see, they're starting to get pretty dry. Some of them still feel a little wet, so they're not ready yet. But they've got about 4 hours in. They do kind of stick a little bit, but not too bad. So this is what it looks like when it's starting to dry. And these two are the trays that I've just filled. Just to show you the difference, these are tomato skins that I removed from tomatoes that I've put in my jars and made my salsa with. While these, which are drying quite well but are still quite wet, and as you can see, I have them on a tray or on a, I guess on a sheet that came with the dehydrator. These are what came out of my food mill when I was juicing my tomatoes, so it makes a different kind of consistency. I actually really like these because they're a lot easier when I want to put in something. I can just rub them in my hands once they're all dry and they all just kind of break apart. I don't need to put them in a food processor or anything. They just crumble apart. So I really like this, but I always get a lot less of these. So I had put these on the bottom tray. What I'm going to do now, since these are already drying and these are drying, is I'm going to put my damper ones on the bottom in case they drip. I don't expect them to drip much because they were not frozen and not a lot of liquid in. And so I stack all my trays, one on top of the other. This is what the top of my dehydrator looks like. As you can see, I've got like temperature guides there, and so this is why I really like it. It's simple and it's easy to use, easy to clean up and easy to store. So now all that's left to do is to plug it in and set it at the right temperature. So the tomatoes are done. The tomato skins have dehydrated. Just to give you an idea what they should be looking like. They need to be really crispy to the point where they're brittle. Once you've gotten them all dried out, you're going to take the container that you're putting them in, and you really need to pack this down tight. It has to be really tight and closed airtight just to make sure that no air or humidity gets inside. One more thing I'd like to mention is that this book has an entire section on dehydrating. It goes into a lot of detail about different techniques to dehydrate. There's lots of recipes with fruits and vegetables and meats and thymes, and so it's a really good resource if you're looking to get into doing any kind of dehydration. Some other things as well that you could do is you can dehydrate onions, you can dehydrate garlic, and you can make your own onion powder and garlic powder. So the possibilities are really endless, and the fun thing about it is that you know how it was prepared, you know that nothing else was put in it, and you know actually where your vegetables came from if you grew them yourself or bought them at a market. Just be prepared. If you do strong smelling things like onions and garlic, you may have a garlic or onion scent in your house for quite a long time. So just keep that in mind. So something I wanted to show you is this is actually some tomatoes that I had dehydrated that are left over from last year. So I store these in my cabinets in my kitchen just because I want to make sure that they're somewhere where it's fairly dry. I don't want any dampness to get in it, and so that they would go moldy. But if you dehydrate your things really well, they should last for a really long time. So these are tomatoes that I did last year, and as you can see, they're still really dry and flaky. Like they're really crumbly and they're beautiful. There's no mold, there's nothing to them. They still smell and look absolutely great, so they last a really long time. Once you're done dehydrating your tomatoes, you can store them, like I said, in the mason jars. You really need to pack them down really tight and get a lot in there. So I had this mason jar packed down really tight, and I put them in my food processor. So this is the equivalent of a pint-sized jar, so a 500 milliliter jar. This is how much dehydrated tomato skins that I had inside that jar. So I'm just gonna powder them so you can see how much you're gonna be left with. So just keep in mind that you need a lot of tomato skins to make a little bit of powder. So let me show you how I grind them down. This is how much I actually have left after I've turned them into somewhat more of a powder consistency. So my mason jar was very full and very packed. So just to show you how much I'm left with. Leaves me with about 3/4 of a bottle. Another way to grind up your tomato peel, you can also use, like I said, a handheld mixer, or it's not a mixer but a grinder type handheld, one of these things, and you can do it this way. So these are the ones that I just ran through my food processor. So this is going to turn them, grind them even finer. But just be warned that it can be messy. That's why I try to use a container that doesn't have a lot of room on the side, because this kind of sends everything flying everywhere. I just want to show you the difference of how fine I got them with my food processor and how fine I got them with the handheld mixer. So this was the food processor. As you can see, the flakes are a little bit better. Maybe it's just my food processor that doesn't cut as fine. And this is how fine I got them with the handheld mixer. I tend to prefer, especially if I'm using it as a tomato paste, this consistency, the more powdery kind, or if you want to spread it on top of a salad, or but either one is fine. It's just whatever your preference is. And as you can see, I had quite a bit in my mason jar, and I have now been reduced to this quantity. So you need a lot of tomatoes to get a good quantity. Today we've taken our tomato from the tomato to the tomato peel to the dehydrated tomato, and into two different sizes of the powdered tomato, if you will. I think this is great. There's a lot less waste, and it's so nice to be able to take a fruit or vegetable and to use as many parts of it as possible and have so many different uses for it as well. If you like today's vlog, Feel free to share my channel, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me comments in the comment section, talk about things that you'd like to see, and I'll see what I can do. And we'll talk again soon.